A lot to get through. Simon, many results catch the eye over the weekend, but the one that caught it catches everybody's eye, doesn't it? How can West Ham lose at home 6-0 to Arsenal? How did that happen? The collapse. I looked at my watch, Simon, as the sixth went in. 65 minutes on the clock.
Yep.
If Arsenal had really wanted to do a job on West Ham, they could have done. Not that they didn't, they pretty much did. But if they'd really wanted to humiliate them, it was there for the taking.
I think 6-0 at home is pretty much humiliation, isn't it? I mean, it's degrees of humiliation. This is what happens when one side's off it and another side's on it in the Premier League.
Yeah.
And Arsenal were at it. I was interested to see David's interview afterwards, where he was, first of all, very critical of himself, and then entered into the territory which you must never enter into, apparently, which is criticising the players and looking at the players for their contribution, which is bloody evident, you know, because the coach can set them up and the coach can take responsibility for their performances. But if they want to play the way they did in the first 45 minutes of that game, they're going to get what they got. Right. And, of course, it will fuel the narrative for all those dissenting and vociferous West Ham fans that think David Moyes is a waste of space. Here is your support mechanism for that argument.
Well, I think Simon's right. I mean, West Ham fans already calling in. If you want to call in, call in. I haven't even got to the question yet. 03717 223344. Martin, is that the kind of result and performance that sees the loyal Moyes fans begin to waver a bit?
Well,
did you ever suffer a result like this?
Yes, I did. Absolutely. And this is the whole point. You try and put something in context, but today it's a stick to beat David with, really, as much as anything else, because, you know, he'll have to come to the conclusion some stage or another he's not going to win over all the fans at West Ham United. So really as simple as that there. They won a trophy last season, a European trophy last season. That was last season. You have to continue on this now. But you asked me about a defeat. You try and put it in some sort of context. It was really poor yesterday, really poor. And Simon does make the point where you don't want to criticise the players. I have to say this is the most difficult 3 or 4 minutes after you've been in the sanctuary of the dressing room and you've torn strips of the players, which you think you would do because of the performance being so poor, players not getting in remotely close to, and then stepping out and then trying to defend players. That is, sometimes you just explode. Sometimes you end up nailing them. You want not to do it.
Yes.
But, you know, and it's a kind of a sort of a self-defense mechanism as much as anything else. Getting back to the point about myself, in my final year at Aston Villa, where we ended up finishing 6th, got to the League Cup final and the semi-final of the FA Cup, we went to Stamford Bridge. I think it was very, very close at half-time. They hit us just after half-time with a couple of goals. Suddenly it's 4. Remember my assistant, John Robertson, the great Forest player, saying, Martin, I think you're just reining in now, just reining in. I was saying, John, you must be kidding. We're going to go for this. We're still going to go for it. We went from 4 to 7, got beaten 7. And even though we had a strong defensive side at the time, so we got beaten 7 in the game. But I was hoping that would be taken into context of where we were at that particular stage of the season.
Yeah.
It was a really poor performance yesterday. Unforgivable, really. Players getting not remotely close to it. Looks as if they had no legs, no enthusiasm.
Yeah.
It was poor.
You see, the word that you used there, though, Martin, is a word that David is trying to use post-match: context. When you put it all into context. Have a listen to this. This was David Moyes off the back of West Ham 0, Arsenal 6.
To be a football supporter, especially this club, who people know a lot more about than me, I came back twice to keep them out of relegation. There's always going to be bad times, and it was only 3 months ago we were having probably the best time West Ham have ever had. And let's be fair, probably the last 3 years has probably been as good a time as West Ham's had. 6th, 7th in the league, semi-final of Europe, you know, a final of a European competition. So I still think that this club's grown, and undoubtedly we've had a terrible day today. So I understand them totally leaving, but I think sometimes at football clubs you're going to have bad days. Today we had a bad day, but I certainly won't forget the good one.
So he's saying the good outweighs the bad, although the bad yesterday was pretty darn bad. But Simon, are fans too quick to forget past successes? Or is it only right that managers are pushed into the "what have you done for me lately" narrative?
I think it's a balancing act, isn't it? Because you can't trade on what have you done previously ad infinitum, but you do have to have currency in the bank. It's undeniable. It's irrefutable. that David Moyes has advanced his football club from the moment he walked through the door, the first stint, before they decided to go off on some flight of fancy with Pellegrini and let him burn through enormous amounts of cash buying dead weights like Felipe Anderson that they end up getting out the door for half the price. He then comes back. He then takes them away from relegation. He puts them at the top end of the Premier League. He puts them into a European competition. He wins them a European competition, second season running, a second season after being a major participant in one. He then puts them at the top end of the Premier League. Well, I don't know what you want besides something to complain about. I know, I hear you, here they come. Style of football, Jordan, don't know what you're talking about. It's dull, it's boring, he doesn't know what he's doing, he plays a certain way, he doesn't evolve. So, for me, and I wrote an article about David in October, November, about being a manager that now is back on his game, has recovered from the damage that Man United did and the choices that he made by going to Sociedad and Sunderland and places like that where they weren't right for him and he wasn't right for them at the time. Right. He's now back in the groove and he's a top manager. And I find it wearing that West Ham fans don't know what they've got. Yes, they're entitled to leave. They pay their money. When you're getting beaten 4 or 5 at home, you don't have to watch what you don't want to watch, and you shouldn't have to endure it, and it should be the players that are looking at themselves about that performance.
So if you want to leave the stadium, leave the stadium. It's up to you.
Well, I mean, the key expression I always believe is supporters, right?
Yeah.
Not fans, supporters, because in supporting something, you support it. But sometimes you can't defend the indefensible. You can't sit there and go, well, I'm a supporter, so it's my job to support, and I'm going to sit and watch this turgid tosh. And we're 5-0 down. I don't think I want to watch anymore, thank you very much. I don't think I want to listen to Arsenal fans taking the mickey out of me for the next half an hour of the game while my team are struggling to maintain a score beneath double figures.
Right. Of course, there's talk of a new contract. That seemingly is yet to be announced, Martin. We know his contract's up at the end of the season. Does this affect it? I want to hear from West Ham fans this morning. You've heard from Martin. You certainly heard from Simon there. But West Ham fans already getting in touch. 81089 if you want to send me a message. There's one from Mark, West Ham fan. We love Moyes for doing what he's done for the club, and we are forever grateful. But I think now he's running out of time and road and trading off past triumphs. We need a new manager. Do you go with what Mark is saying there? He starts by praising Moyes and thanking him for what he did, but is it time up? That's a question. 03717 223344.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.